to another Garage Time with Goody. And today what we're going to be doing, we're going to do a temporary fix on the P0420 code on a 2006 4.7 liter V8 Dodge Dakota 4-wheel drive. Now, this procedure will work on a lot of other cars that is throwing that catalytic converter code. Like I said, it's a temporary fix. This is not meant to be permanent, so you're going to do this at your own risk, and I'm not responsible. Okay, guys? Well, here's what you do. I'm going to hook up the scanner to the ODB2 port. It's going to look like this. Then I'm going to put in the key, and I'm going to turn over the key, but I'm not going to turn the car on. And it's going to scan. And it says problems. And I'm going to hit read codes. And it says P0420 catalyst system efficiency below threshold bank 1. Catalyst system efficiency below threshold bank 2. Catalyst system efficiency below threshold bank 1. Bank 2. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to show you a temporary fix. You want to make sure that you haven't been driving the vehicle, because you're going to be working on the exhaust parts and you don't want to burn yourself. So that's very important. Make sure that your vehicle has been setting for a couple of hours and it's not hot underneath. So I'm going to pop the hood. Now, since I've popped the hood, one of the first things I want to do is, since I'm going to be working on something electrical, the O2 sensors, is I'm going to disconnect the battery cables. I'm going to be removing the battery terminals. These aren't factory battery terminals, so the size of your socket may be different. Mine is a 13 millimeter. I'm going to set those to the side. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to jack up the truck a little bit. You don't have to. I'm going to do it so I can have more room to move my arms and my head. I'm going to put a jack stand underneath here. And that way, if the jack fails and falls down, this jack stand will hold it up. Could save your life. What's more important than your life, right? Safety first. According to the error codes, I'm going to be working on both downstream sensors. I'm going to be working on both downstream oxygen sensors. But if you're looking for bank 1, usually it's on the driver's side, but not always. How you figure that out is, if you're facing the front of your vehicle, spark plug that is closest to the front is bank 1. And in this situation, you can see bank 1 is over here on the driver's side, and the spark plug over here on bank 2 is located farther back. So if you're just going to be replacing one, if it says bank 2 or bank 1, that is how you tell the difference in one over the other. Bolted onto the manifold is the very first catalytic converter. You will have one that's an upstream that's near the top and one that's in the bottom. And you don't want to mess with the upstreams at all, but we're going to be working with the downstreams. Underneath here is the plastic connector to the oxygen sensor. You need to push these tabs in and unplug it. And it just unplugs like that when you push that button in. And also, before I get comments on why my thumb has a dark spot in it, sometimes when you're working on vehicles, you get your fingers smashed. Now that this is unplugged, I'm gonna take off the first oxygen sensor, the downstream one, and I'm using a 7/8 wrench. And it could be rusted on there a little bit. You might need to use a cheater pipe. So it's harder than it looks, but I've broke it loose and it's gonna come right off of there. It's coming out of there. Kind of looks like this. We have the first one out now. What you're gonna need to do this temporary fix is what they call spark plug Fowlers. I will put a link to them in the video description box, and they're fairly cheap. These were $6.49, and I happen to have a set already open, and they look just like this. They're identical. Now the idea is these are going to screw together like this, and then we're going to screw the O2 sensor in there, and then we're going to put this onto the downstream of the catalytic converter. The things we're going to have to do first is we're going to have to drill out the middle part of this hole, because as you can see, for the oxygen sensor to go in, it's not going to fit. We're going to need to drill it up to a 1/2 inch. And you're going to have to be careful when you drill. You can drill from this side or this side. You can put it in a vise or vice grips, however you feel comfortable doing it. But when you're drilling, do not drill out these threads. Whichever way you're going to be drilling this, be careful. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is come to the passenger side if you have a bank 2 problem, and this one does. And it's a little bit more confined spaces. What you're going to want to do is break loose this second oxygen sensor, which is on the downstream of the catalytic converter on the passenger side. And also make note that you have room up here for the Fowlers to go on once you get it off and modify it. Let me break this loose. Okay, it's broke loose. And let's go ahead and unplug it from up here. If you can see, you push this clip in and you pull them down, and that's how you unplug it. Feels like it's loosened up enough. So just gonna come on out. And if you guys see, right there is the second oxygen sensor downstream. Now this next step is important. You can see in the spark plug Fowler, I'm going to be drilling down in there, and I'm going to be avoiding these threads because I do not want to damage the threads. If you want to go from this angle, bottom up, you can. Since I do not have a vise, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to use some vice grips. And I'm going to, you do not, and I repeat, you do not want to adjust these where it's going to bend, because this can bend really easy. You just want it enough, adjusted enough where it's going to keep it in place, just like that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my foot here, and if you can see, I have a cordless drill, and I'm going to start out with smaller bits until I need it to the size of the oxygen sensor. I'm going to drill down in here, steady hand. Okay, that was pretty steady. And then you can see that hole's bigger now and that I didn't damage the threads. So I'm gonna go a step up higher on the drill, or on the drill bit. Next size up. As you can see, the shavings to the metal's coming out, and as you can see, that's gradually getting bigger. I'm gonna go next step up. Eventually we got to get it to 1/2 inch. I believe this is 1/2 inch right here. Now we're going to test to see if it will fit now. But before you do, give this a second to cool down, because you don't want to burn yourself. This is what it looks like once you have the 1/2 inch in there. You go ahead and screw the O2 sensor onto the top half, and it looks like this. We're going to take this bottom piece and screw it right below the Catalytic converter. This is bank 1. And I'm going to put the adapter on here, and I'm going to start it by hand first. And then I'm going to use the 22mm ratchet and socket to tighten it down. Also, a very important part is when you get your oxygen sensor, you're going to want to make sure it's the exact one that came off this side, that it matches up with the color of the wiring harness. On this side right here, it is black. So make sure that you match the exact oxygen sensor. On the other side, it will be gray on the passenger side. So I'm going to tighten this down, give it about 15 foot-pounds, until it's pretty tight. You will take the oxygen sensor that you had that is now encased in the other foul plug, and the other spark plug foul, and you're going to tighten it by hand. You'll see there's plenty of clearance here too. Always make sure there's clearance when you put these back on, and make sure your harness, the wiring to your O2 sensor, doesn't get in a bind. Put it on too tight, you don't want it to break. You want it on there pretty good. Then I'm gonna run it back up here. One of the things I almost forgot, you're gonna wanna put it up above these lines because this is for your 4-wheel drive right here. And you want the wire to go over that. You don't want it to get tangled up in your front drive shaft. It should just clip. You hear that snap? That means it's back on there. It's cleared the drive shaft here, and that's what it's going to look like over here once it's back together. And we're going to copy this process on the passenger side. Go ahead and put that on by hand, and then you get a 22 millimeter on there, like that. And then you slowly tighten it. Tighten that down.
That's what I'm doing,
tighten the first part of the spark plug Fowler on to the downstream. And this is on the passenger side, right below the catalytic converter. It's a tight fit, but be patient. Now we're going to take this, which has the Fowler over it with the oxygen sensor, and it does have enough clearance, and we're going to go ahead, I'm going to hand tighten it. I'm going to hand tighten this on here. I'm going to hand tighten this on here. Then when it's hand tightened, you're going to need to tighten it with the wrench. Okay, and right here, you're going to want to tighten it down pretty good. I'd say not too tight. I'll put the torque specs on there. I'd say probably about 10 pounds, 10 foot-pounds should do it, in my experiences. And then that's what it's going to look like on the passenger side. You see it still has plenty of clearance. And then we're going to plug it back in to the wiring harness. Once you get the oxygen sensors back on there, you're going to want to lower down the truck off the jack if you had it jacked up. There's the jack stand. Then I'm going to lower the truck. Now the last step that you do is hook up the battery terminals. And like I said, mine's a 13 millimeter. Yours will probably be more than likely a different size, probably like a 10. You want to get these tight so that it makes a good connection. Be careful not to touch anything. Do not arc anything. Just tighten these up. Then shut the hood. And you're ready for a test. Now, the engine codes should have reset because the battery was disconnected. But I'm gonna go ahead and start it up to make sure there's no engine light. As you can see, there is no engine light. What we'll have to do is we're going to drive the truck around for about a week and see if the engine light comes back. that is the temporary fix on how to fix the P0420 or 430 engine code lights temporarily until you change the catalytic converter.